Good evening. Welcome. We'll go ahead and get started with our meeting this evening. I'd like to welcome our community. Please join us now for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Welcoming our guests and welcoming folks watching from home. Appreciate you participating this evening. And can I get a motion to adopt our agenda this evening?
I move to adopt tonight's agenda as presented.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All right. Passes, all in favor. We'll move now to item 2.1, our superintendent's report. Dr. Buck?
Good evening, everybody. I have several things in the report, and everybody can access it in board docs. And we also have several people here, obviously, that we're going to celebrate here in the next section. So I'm going to be a little bit brief, but kudos to everybody from, you're talking about the STEM and digital teams to our students in the Student Television Network to our kids at ProStart who competed with other school districts and took third place out of 42 teams recently. Kudos to Stu Reese, and so many other folks are doing great things. I want to highlight a couple things that are not in that report before I move on to the student recognition, so I'm really looking forward to. One, we had a retirement celebration for those retiring in our certified and classified staff. So we have, out of those folks, they represent 2,007 years of service. I cannot thank them enough, and the generations and the literally tens of thousands of people they've impacted over their careers. So thank you to those who are finishing up their careers in the next weeks, and we appreciate you. 2, Saturday, we have graduation, 3 different graduations. We're going to graduate over 1,500 kids. I believe this is the first time North passes up West for the biggest class graduating. Kudos to all of you. Kudos to everyone who helped them get there. We have over 20,000 people within our school district, counting students and staff. We have 102,000 people in our community, our patrons, within our borders. That includes those students and staff. As a public institution, we serve everyone. We serve all ideas. We serve all those who have different bank accounts and different varieties of things. We don't sort. We serve all. We're a public school. We serve all the public. So I can't thank everyone enough for helping us live the mission that's above us, or the mission, vision, and commitments that are on that over there. I see it lift every day. I see us learn when we make mistakes. I see us holding people accountable and also building a sense of belonging through a framework of dignity. So I couldn't be more proud of our community and our staff, and I look forward to celebrating with over 1,500 kids and all their families as we fill up Children's Mercy Arena on Saturday. So with that, I will defer the rest of my presentation that people can read so we can honor some people that's in the room.
All right, we'll move on now to presentations and recognition. Item 3.1.
Okay, we are going to start with item 3.01. This is going to be our student recognition of our Special Olympic athletes in Midwest Adaptive Sports. So the board and administration tonight would like to recognize the accomplishments of our students with different abilities who have competed in various athletic competitions and tournaments throughout the school year. We're going to start first with the LSR7 Unified Basketball Team, the Vipers of Doom, who were coached by Don Jones and Kathy Carey. Let them get in here. So the Vipers of Doom earned a bronze medal at state this spring and will represent all of our special education athletes throughout the district tonight. I do want to recognize those who are here individually. We have Owen Merritt from Pleasant Lee Middle School. Julius Jones from Pleasant Lee Middle School. Colton Shields from Lee Summit High School. Miles Dimino from Miller Park Center. Quentin Ford, Lee Summit North High School. Nolan Skelsey, Pleasant Lee Middle School. Ryan Britt, Summit Lakes Middle School. Reese Johns, Lee Summit North High School. And a couple of our unified partners, Carter Pikulski from Lee Summit High School and a graduate in 2021. And Adam Robinson from Lee Summit West High School. So before we let them go, we do want to make sure that you know that our program here in LSR7 does include flag football, bowling, where our athletes this year earned over 18 medals, and earned 18 medals, not more than, and an ongoing successful track season that is featuring our unified team. We are very, very proud of all of these athletes and the plan to grow these opportunities for unified sports in our district. If the parents of these athletes are also here, could you stand or even come up with your athletes either way, just so you can also be recognized? Feel free to take some pictures here, but thank you again to the Vipers of Doom for being here tonight.
Thank you all so much. We'll move on to.
Hang on, we have one more team to recognize here under
apologize.
3.01. So, okay, our second team that we want to recognize tonight here is our LSR7 athletes who just recently completed the 2021-2022 wheelchair basketball season with the Kansas City Kings. The Kings compete under the National Wheelchair Basketball Association against teams from across the country. The first team we're going to recognize is the Kansas City Kings varsity team. The varsity team comprises athletes that range in age from 14 to 18. This year they finished 5th in the nation and had their most successful season in team history. Lee Summit North junior Ben Edwards represents Lee Summit on the Kansas City Kings varsity team. And while they're taking a couple of pictures, it should be noted, Ben also was named to the all-tournament team at the national tournament. And Ben, I'm going to ask you just to step to the side and then keep you up there once the prep kids are up here too. How's that sound? Okay. And then the other athletes that we want to recognize tonight is the Kansas City Kings prep team. These are athletes that are 13 years and under. This season, well, here, yeah, we'll let them do that. So another person needs to come up here. Coach Josh Bailey, I know, is here as well. And so is Matt here, by the way? What? Oh, and Doug Bolton is here too. So we have a couple other coaches who are here with him too. So Josh Bailey and Doug Bolton. So the Kansas City Kings prep team finished this season a perfect 33-0 and won the national championship. And so we will recognize these individuals who represent Lee Summit. Jesus Cardoza from Bernard Campbell Middle School. Jeremiah Mangles from Bernard Campbell Middle School. And even though he's going to get embarrassed, I have a bias towards Isaac Murdoch from Longview Farm Elementary. And Kaylee Bolton from Prairie View Elementary. And like we did with the previous, if there's any parents and relatives of the Kansas City Kings players, please stand up and be recognized. One more time for the Kansas City Kings. Thank you all very much for being here. We appreciate it.
All right, we'll move now to item 3.02. Megan?
Thank you,
Board Member
President
Marshall?
Campbell. This thing on? All right, I will be doing the National Merit Finalist. Founded in 1955 to conduct the annual Merit Scholarship Competition, the National Merit Scholarship Corporation is a privately financed, not-for-profit corporation that operates without government assistance. Scholarships awarded through the program are underwritten by nearly 500 independent scholar organizations and institutions, as well as with the corporation's own funds. Nearly 1.5 million students throughout the United States entered the merit program as juniors by taking the preliminary SAT, National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, which serves as an initial screening for program entrance. Congratulations to our 2022 National Merit Scholar finalists. And like before, when I call out the student's name, parents, feel free to either stand where you are or join your student up here. We do have one student that is not in attendance, but I wanted to make sure that they were recognized, and that's Bella Washburn from Lee Summit North High School. Lena Baker from Lee Summit North High School. James Moore, Lee Summit North High School. Sophia Canahans, Lee Summit West High School. And Emma Wang from Lee Summit West High School. Congratulations.
Thank you. Moving on now to 3.03, Missouri Scholars. Board Member Sparks?
Yes, I have the great privilege and honor of introducing the Missouri Scholars 100. Is a statewide program that honors 100 of Missouri's top academic students in the graduating class of 2022. The program is sponsored by the Missouri Association of Secondary School Principals. Schools across Missouri were invited to nominate candidates for the statewide recognition. Each nominated student first had to meet the academic decathlon criteria, which includes the 10 events designated to ensure the students' academic strengths, excellent grades, test scores, high-level courses, attendance, and school citizenships were considered during the selection process. Students will be recognized, they have been recognized at a luncheon during this month, and also congratulations to the 2022 Missouri Scholars 100. When I call your name, please come, and as previously, parents, please stand up when your student is recognized. We have Lily Aldendeffer from Lee Summit High School. We have Allie Mathis from Lee Summit High School. Bella Washburn, she was unable to be with us on today, but she is from Lee Summit North High School. We have Joel Kilgore from Lee Summit North High School. Wyatt Carlson from Lee Summit West High School. And Emma Wayne from Lee Summit West High School. If there are any parents present, please stand up or wave your hand so we can also recognize you for your hard work as a parent.
All right, moving on to 3.04, Missouri Scholars Academy, Board Member Foley.
Several Lee Summit R7 school district sophomores were selected to attend the Missouri Scholars Academy, a 3-week summer academic program for approximately 330 of Missouri's gifted students. Acceptance is based on a student essay, teacher recommendations, PSAT scores, and IQ tests. The Academy is a residential program held on the University of Missouri-Columbia campus and funded by the state of Missouri. The Academy features carefully selected faculty and staff, a specially designed curriculum that focuses on the liberal arts and a variety of stimulating extracurricular activities. Academy students are able to become part of a unique learning community. Congratulations to our Missouri Scholar Academy attendees. Sophia Falco from Lee Summit High School. She's unable to attend today. Andrew Nietzsche from Lee Summit High School. Thomas Burhay from Lee Summit North High School. Miles Goodman from Lee Summit North High School. Alexander Greider, Lee Summit North High School. And again, if you are a parent of one of these students, we'd love to have you stand so we can thank you as well. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll move to 3.05 and Board Member Eslick.
Thank you. I am pleased to announce the Missouri Fine Arts Academy nominees, recipients. The Missouri Fine Arts Academy is a unique 3-week residential summer program for exceptional Missouri artists who have completed their sophomore or junior year of high school. Initiated in 1996, the program offers students the opportunity to enhance their skills in such fields as dance, visual arts, theater, and music, while participating in a stimulating series of interdisciplinary and co-curricular activities. Students are nominated by their high schools to attend the academy. This year's Missouri Fine Arts Academy will be held this summer on the campus of Missouri State University in Springfield. It is funded through program fees, grants, endowments, scholarships, and private donations. This year, 3 student artists from Lee Summit R7 earned spots for visual arts in the Fine Arts Academy. They are Gabrielle Haven from Lee Summit High School, I apologize if I mispronounce this name, Anna Meintrip, Lee Summit North High School, and Will Brown, Lee Summit West High School. And if the parents of these fine students here would stand up, wave, be recognized. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to 3.06, we'll have Vice President Fritchie.
It is my honor to present the state championships for speech and debate. The Lee Summit R7 debate and speech teams dominated at the MSHSAA state tournament on April 22nd and 23rd. And unlike other sports and activities, speech and debate is not divided by class in Missouri. So the students who earned individual awards and contributed to team awards are recognized as the best in the state. Lee Summit North's team was named overall speech champions. I will announce those team members. They are Aaron Powdell, Braden Dowers, Rita Pham, and Abigail Clothier. Oh, my apologies. My notes said they were Lee Summit Norths. They are Lee Summit Wests. Sorry about that, Coach. Coach is over there going, those are my kids. Okay, and our next students we will recognize are Maddie Norris, who was named the state champion in U.S. extemporaneous speaking. Maddie Norris. Also, Ashlyn Bandelier was named the state champion in informative speaking. Lee Summit West's team was named overall debate champions. And Abigail Clothier and Rita Pham earned the state championship in public forum debate. As a former debater, I salute you and thank you and recognize your excellent speaking skills. Let's hear it for them. Parents, please stand. Parents, if you're in the room, please stand.
Are there other awards? There's another group.
Where's the other group? Lisa. Did we? Okay, please do. Turn on the microphone and name your students.
Okay, so thank you so much for recognizing these teams tonight. We know you have a lot of recognitions tonight, but the Lee Summit North speech team also was state champions as a team.
Okay, very good.
We gave you all that information. I'm so sorry.
So, no,
So we have parents here of those students, so if I could quickly recognize those
please
students
bring
as
them
well.
in.
Okay, please recognize Haley Reed from Lee Summit North,
Come on up.
finalist in storytelling. John Asia Carter, finalist in original oratory.
Woohoo!
Myrick, finalist in poetry reading. Reagan Parker, finalist in radio speaking. Lena Baker, finalist in public forum debate. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's hear it from.
Just an amazing night and celebrating a lot of amazing accomplishments here. Next item on our agenda is 3.07, and I will take this one, and it's my honor to recognize all three of our LSR7 robotics teams. I'll say a few words and then we'll have the teams come up. Our teams, all three of our robotics teams, competed in the World Championships in Houston this year. After victorious seasons, the 3 teams were among 450 teams from 11 different countries. And to get to Worlds, you have to go through regional processes. You have to compete and compete and compete to get to the Worlds. I will recognize that when they got to Worlds, Lee Summit High School's Team Driven came in 3rd overall at the World Championships. At other regional competitions, the team earned the Chairman's Award, the highest honor at a regional event, and the Industrial Design Award. Lee Summit West Team Titanium finished 5th in their division in the World Championship and earned 2 regional victories, and team member Caden Murphy, who we'll get to meet hopefully in just a minute, was selected as a Dean's List finalist at one of the regional competitions, the highest honor of an individual student. Our Lee Summit North Broncobots made it to quarterfinals at the World Championship. They qualified for the championships at 3 different regional competitions, where they were also awarded the Engineering Inspiration Award and the Quality Award. And one thing I'll share about robotics that I love, Woody Flowers, one of the co-creators of FIRST Robotics and participant at the World Championships, brought about what's called gracious professionalism. I know all the robotics team members know what this is, but I just wanted to share that's the way of doing things that encourages high quality work. It emphasizes the value of others, and it respects individuals and the community. And what this means is that if you're a robotics team member, if you see another team that has a broken robot or a missing part or a missing tool, gracious professionalism encourages you to go, provide them with what you have to share, and to provide them with the help, because the competition is on the field, but gracious professionalism rules overall on the competitions. So I love that part of robotics. Congratulations to all of the team members and their coaches for their hard work and for this season. I will share that we had a couple of teams that were having their awards banquets tonight that were not able to join us. Lee Summit High School's Team Driven, led by Wyatt Durgan, and team members include Brody Wells, Heath Crump, J.T. Gentry, Lily Offendorfer, Logan Nault, Piper Stropes, Zoe Sears, Angelina Hodes, Carter Wainwright, Dylan Newell, Dylan Seitz, Ethan Fleming, Grace George, Madison Bellamy, Owen Blumhorst, Will Eckert, Adam Bruns, Itchel Garcia, Olivia Odell, Sophie Falco, Emmer Abelatau, Alan Bame, Allison Finley, Axel Littlepage Holmes, Colin Dugan, Jacob Morell, Justin Hefner, Kevin Eason, and Max Vides. Our Lee Summit North Broncobots, led by Hillary Griffith. Do we have any Broncobots with us this evening? Great, come on up. Yes, we got 1 or 2 here. And Hillary, would you like to acknowledge your team members, or would you like me to read the list? You're good. You got the list. Okay. Well, yes, absolutely. Great, great. Team members include Matthew Allen, Bruce Burgo, Blake Carter, Elena Cleaver, James Cox, Jonah Hamill, Cale Hicks, Milo Johnson, Clarice Kent, Brent Kleffner, Scott Kleffner, Maddie Lane, Wesley Oxman, Sadaquab Pujols, Grayson Saxon, Jacob Schnenke, Cooper Spacel, M. Stroll, Eleanor Sullivan, Nate Tohill, Karali Vega, and Corbin Zabronsky. And I'd like to acknowledge also their mentors that appear to be with them as well. So congratulations, Broncobots. And now I'd like to invite Lee Summit West Team Titanium to come up. This team is led by Eric Walters at Lee Summit West. Eric, would you like to introduce your team, or would you like me to
Just go ahead.
read off? All right, great. Tonight we have Matthew Allen, Bruce Burgo, Blake Carter, Elena Cleaver, James Cox, Jonah Hamill, oh, wrong team. Okay, we got it right. Aaron Bailey. Oh, great. Additional coaches. Oh, Aaron Bailey and Aaron Band. Thank you. Miles Farmer, Aiden Juarez, Brianna Pfeiffer, Marin McManus, Pierce Jacoby, Nick Medley, Brianna Harmon, Anthony Clote, Caden Murphy, Ava Winstonowski, Dalton Lewis, Chase Burks, Christopher Sparks, Derek Worthley, Kyle Spies, Aiden Levin, Xavier Poe, Aditya Javdhav, Sean Bailey, Avery Naw, Chloe Osberg, Ellen Drake, Elenia Nixon, Kate Packer, Aiden Mercer, Quentin Ripley, Brett Pearson, Sabina Farmer, Averill Reddy, Andy Kang, Lily Major, and Andrew Hill. Congratulations, Team Titanium. And I'll just say, all those folks put in lots of hours and lots of hard work. They also, if you have students that are younger and interested in robotics, there are summer camps for robotics. There are the youth robotics leagues, so great information, and look for that information and get your students engaged and involved. All right, now we'll move to 3.08, and that will go to Board Member Sparks.
I have the honor and the privilege to serve on this committee this year, and I am excited about that. The Lee Summit R7 School District announced the LSR7 2022 Teacher of the Year is Mrs. Holly Don. Come on down. So Mrs. Don, she is the vocal music educator at the Summit Lakes Middle School, and there was a special reception for her at the Longview Mansion on April the 13th, 2022 to honor her. Mrs. Holly Don has spent the entirety of her 18-year education career in Lee Summit R7 School District. It says, after all, growing up and attending the Lee Summit schools, and currently is a music teacher at Summit Lakes Middle School. Mrs. Don has brought her love of music to 7 schools in the district, starting with elementary education before switching over to middle school in fall of 2011. She said that she relies on building relationships and establishing a positive learning environment for her students in order to be an effective teacher and believe the process of learning through music minors and the process of learning about life. A committee selected Mrs. Don out of a pool of 15 candidates, all recipients of the Lee Summit Chambers of Commerce Excellence in Teaching and Teacher in Distinguished Awards. In addition to her 2022 Excellence in Teaching Award, Mrs. Don was nominated for a Grammy Music Educator Award in 2019, a third-time recipient of the LSR7 Peak Grant Award, and the Inspired Educator Award in 2009. She now is nominated for the LSR7 Excellence in Teachings twice before in 2013 and 2019. If you would please stand on your feet and let's give Mrs. Holly Don a round of applause. And while the board is coming down to honor her, I must say a fun fact. Her mother is one of our own, Mrs. Kim Frenchie, and that is an honor.
All right, next on our agenda, we've got 3.09, which will be our presentations, and we've got a presentation for the Kevin Nelson and Hallison Miller will provide an update on the Early Education Center and the Miller Park projects.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me all right? It says it's on. All right, can you guys hear me okay? Great, thank you for having me tonight. I want to be able to give you a quick update on a couple projects that are exciting. Obviously, a cool night to be here to see all the recognitions. A little hard act to follow, but we'll show you what we got going on with the Miller Park and Paradise Park projects. So first, we'll start with Paradise Park, the Early Childhood, Early Education Center. And just kind of show you a quick few things. This is the first floor plan of that building. And if you're all familiar with that before, it was the Family Fun Center. And so on the left side of the plan, we were creating classrooms on that side. And on the right side of the plan, this is that old edutainment center, that's been remodeled into some really cool themed play learning spaces. And the whole theme of the project is around the book Going on a Bear Hunt, a book that the school uses quite a bit with their students, and so that's helping to inspire the spaces within the new floor plan. So you'll start to see the home, the bear cave, the mountaintop, the beach, the forest, the grasslands. Those will all start to show up in some of the graphics and the other finishes of the spaces. When we go up to the second level, we have some additional classrooms on that level. Again, that's the mountaintop theme, so you'll climb the stairs up to the mountaintop for that piece, with a couple more classrooms on the second level. A few renderings to kind of show you what this will start to look like. Here we have the front entry. Again, that going on that bear hunt, so you have the tree that greets you at that main front entry as you get into the space. Below that, there's a corridor that connects the main classrooms to those more active learning spaces, and it's a sensory corridor, like you're walking through the forest with the trees there and the animals on the wall. And then on the right, a couple images of some of those spaces that have been remodeled, the old market town with some open play, the kids' kitchen with a beach theme, and down in the bottom right corner there, that mountaintop flex area, kind of showing that base camp up on the top of the mountain for the students to enjoy. As we look at the second floor, there are some other programs on the second floor. In addition to the classrooms, we have Head Start and their diagnostic team are on that second floor. We have the Bass District offices. as well as a high school business classroom, and the number 5, that large conference center that was existing, is there to remain for district use. Now, you know, with the program there at Paradise Park, there's a pretty good sized site that goes with that. And so beyond the early education center, we've got some site programs that are being developed as well. And so kind of want to give you a glimpse as to what that's looking like. Number 1 is the Environmental Studies building. The old firehouse is being turned into that Environmental Studies building. We're looking at adding some auxiliary restrooms for those site programs, some improvements to the pond with the dock, as well as that existing pavilion and potentially a nature walk there, number 5. Getting into a little bit more detail, that old firehouse is becoming that environmental building. The left side, you have a bit of an entry with restrooms and support services for the animal habitat room. And then on the right side, a new lab space, classroom space for those students to learn about those animals within the habitat room, as well as things that they may collect around the site on their studies. A couple images on the right just kind of show you what that lab space may start to look like once it's renovated. Here's some images from the outside. On the left, we have some black and white pictures of the existing firehouse, and on the right is the proposed reskinning of that building to kind of update it, get it modernized, and help it look more suitable for the environmental studies program than a firehouse. So replacing garage doors with windows and getting it ready for students to come. What I call the backyard of the firehouse already has a pretty cool metal fence around it, but the inside that metal fence needs some renovation. So looking at taking out all that asphalt paving that's within that space and creating an outdoor classroom for the students. And you see that kind of boulder or rock retaining wall terraced space for an outdoor classroom to be able to bring animals outside and interact with them with staff in that space. Additional site improvements, we talked about getting some restrooms out onto the site. So as we want to be able to use some of those existing facilities, obviously we need restrooms close to where we're at. And so they're kind of in the middle of the existing pavilion, and then proposed future greenhouse and maybe even a butterfly garden in the future. We'll have that orange space where we can place this restroom building for access to the entire site. As we look at the large pond, having a fishing dock along the way and potentially phasing that to have that floating dock space that you see in the image, but that'll give space for fishing for students and other ways to collect water samples out of the pond. This is some images of that existing pavilion that's on site. Get a large outdoor pavilion, looking at adding some technology, some speakers, some projectors to that space, as well as some power and data for being able to use that as another outdoor classroom. And it's large enough potentially to even have professional development activities and other things within that pavilion. And then at the very south end of the site is this kind of master planned nature trail that would go across pretty much the whole south end of the site, allowing us to develop native plantings and other things that students could utilize to collect samples, take pictures, experience kind of nature within that site through that nature trail. Moving on to Miller Park Center. A couple updates there. The first one is at that 1920s Rise building, looking at getting a new stair and an elevator on the south side of that building so that we can have accessible access to the second floor, which will expand our access to programs on that second floor. So small addition for that stair and elevator being proposed to that building. When you go kind of across that back parking lot to the south, there is that 1960s existing building. This will be for the GREAT program, being renovated for the GREAT program. And it's got two sides to it. One is kind of our work side, where we go to work and we learn on the vocational training. And on the left side is the home side, kind of set up like a studio apartment where you have a kitchen space and a living room and dining room space. So they can learn to kind of live within that studio apartment space. And then there is a few little offices towards the front. But again, having that home side and that work side for the GREAT program. On the right is just a couple of renderings of what that may look like when it's finished. And then the third program at the Miller Park Center is for the flight program. And this is a new building. This would be located where the existing mobile classrooms are currently. And you'll see we have 3 classrooms in an active sensory space that kind of center around a central common space so that they can share that common space for flex activities, cooking, kitchen, food prep. Some of those things can happen within that center common space, as well as space for obviously restrooms and some other support offices within that space. On the right, you'll see some renderings of what the front of that new flight building could potentially look like, as well as that center common space is that bottom image on the right. That was my quick update on those programs. Any questions?
Do you want me to just go ahead? Okay.
It's not lit. Oh,
Well,
no.
Anyway,
Go ahead, please go ahead.
singular question. What is the purpose of one high school business classroom on the second floor of the Paradise Park area?
Purpose of the single.
One business. Yeah, absolutely.
I know he'd love to talk about programming, but he's more of the design building. So that's the entrepreneur class that's going to be working with folks like Velocity Downtown. They're going to also look at, it'll be a flex kind of program where they flex some time to actually run the outdoor amenities. So you got the golf carts, the batting cages, and the putt-putt golf. We have student competition right now to redesign the putt-putt golf that's going on as well. I think they're pitching, it might be tomorrow, it's coming up soon, that they're pitching their designs to us. And so that's what that program is. So it'd be high school kids that go there for a half-day program, like kids go to Herndon or Cass or to STA. And if I could add, so the environmental ed is a similar program, and I know many of the board members already know this. Half-day program, high school kids go. They learn not only how to create lesson plans around teaching science, but then all 18 elementaries will have culminating assignments of science units where we bus them in for a field trip to do a culminating science project, and our high school kids will teach and lead those throughout the 14.5-acre campus, including in that learning space at the firehouse.
Board Member Fritchie?
Thank you. When we were back on the slide that looks at the pavilion, I'm not sure what slide, oh, it's slide number 16, I think it is. That pavilion looks a lot like the go-kart area. It is not?
No, that's all open there. So if the go-kart area does have doors that go all the way to the ground, all the way around it. So there is that structure, and we're going to keep that is for go-karts.
Okay.
But also we'll use that facility to, sometimes you have programs where police department teaches bike riding lessons, things like that. So we'll invite other programs to use that space as well.
Great. That's what I was concerned about. I thought that we had said we were going to repurpose for the go-karts and try to run those through entrepreneurship programs. So thanks. Appreciate it.
Board members, do we have any other questions? Board Member Sparks?
No questions. Just want to highlight that I am thankful that we are doing something with Miller Park. I am very thankful for that.
Board Member Eslick?
Thank you. I just had a question that may already have been answered, but predates me. So I'm on slide number 6, and I was just looking at the layout design for the second floor. Are we repurposing the existing rooms that are there, or is this we're gutting and reshaping that entire floor to fit the space? Yes. Okay. I was just curious if we are
Yes and
completely redoing it. Okay.
There's kind of a lot going on depending on where you are on that second floor. On the right side of the plan, a lot of it is existing. Where you see the Head Start classrooms, there's currently multiple smaller rooms, and we're able to remove the wall in between them to create the larger classroom. So we're utilizing a lot of what's there by just kind of removing the wall, opening that up. On the left side where you see those classrooms, that's actually a 2-story space currently. They had the airsoft guns and the climbing wall and other stuff in there. We're actually adding a floor within that space to be able to add those new classrooms on the left side. The area on the bottom on the left that's offices is a lot of existing offices that they use there currently. So reusing a lot of that space as well.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? I'll just add our thanks for this evening. This was a great presentation, great updates. I'll add a thanks to all the members of our community because these, again, are bond projects that you approved, and thank you for doing that. The early childhood helps us not have a waiting list for our earliest learners, very important. And to Board Member Sparks' point, Miller Park needs those renovations. We have programs at Miller Park that no other district has. And it's amazing that we can provide those services and those learning opportunities for our students. So thank you so much for sharing these updates with us.
Of course, happy to be here. Thank you.
All right, moving on, we'll move to 4.01, our public comments. In a minute, I'll have our new parliamentarian, Board Member Murdoch, share some information with our speakers. This evening, we do have Melissa Kane, Melissa Foxhoven, Madison Grubbs, Kristen Grubbs, Camille Johnson, Robin Walsh, Emily James, and Marla Stout. If you'd like to go ahead and come there to the side, and then we'll go in that order. Board Member Murdoch?
Thank you, Board President Campbell. Tonight, we do appreciate your attendance and willingness to speak to the board. Please remember that while this is a public meeting, this part of the meeting does not contemplate a conversation between speakers and board members. The board does not respond to public comments during the meeting, but may ask clarifying questions. Your comments will be noted by the board, and if appropriate, we will direct the subject to the administrators who are responsible for that particular subject matter. Please note, pursuant to Board Policy BDDH, we will be limiting all comments to no more than 10 people with a limit of 3 minutes each. Your allotted 3 minutes will be counted down on the screen. Please conclude your comments when the timer expires. Only those who have signed up prior to the meeting will be allowed to address the board. Please refrain from using the names of any students, staff in your remarks. Remain respectful, avoid personal attacks, and ensure your comments pertain to district operations. We also ask all audience members to remain respectful during public comment. Lastly, when your name is called, please go to the podium, clearly state your name and organization you represent, if any.
All right, we'll start with Melissa Kane.
Yes, my name is Melissa Kane. I originally scheduled myself tonight to talk about the unacceptable number of discrimination lawsuits currently filed against the district and those recently settled out of court for hundreds of thousands of dollars. But then something new was brought to my attention, something that just so happens to be in my field of expertise. Teachers at Lee Summit West endorsing a Turning Point USA club. Turning Point USA, whose founders are currently under investigation for planning and funding January 6th. Turning Point USA, whose website today still promotes the same white replacement theory that inspired the Buffalo mass shooter. For the past 8 years, I have studied extremist white supremacist ideologies, the cells and the shell cells they create. I have helped the FBI identify 5 insurrectionists, and I worked with Frank Matt for the Wall Street Journal's video on January 6th. What I know about Turning Point USA can't fit into a 3-minute speech. They have made headlines for boasting about their watch list of professors. Every controversy within these high school clubs can be traced from an unwitting parent or teacher to a provocateur with ties to extremists. But don't take it from me. This screenshot, which I've tweeted out, is from the Jackson County Parents Association group. Discussing the peaceful protest organized by students at West against this club, one parent said, "This needs to go as high as Sean Hannity and Tucker Carlson." Wherein the OP responded, "We have a line of communication to the CFO of the org, and eyes are watching." Eyes are watching indeed. For instance, this screenshot is of Corbin Hubble, an adult in Nebraska, with the same style assault weapon used by the mass shooter in Buffalo in his profile pic, tweeting pictures of minors from West. If you follow the thread, you will see some of the minors telling Corbin that they are minors and to please take their pictures down. You will also see that these out-of-state adults who work for Turning Point USA stalked our minor children's social media and stole the pictures they are tweeting out. If you follow the quote tweets, you will find Chloe Garland, another adult who works for Turning Point, living in Florida, tweeting pictures of our minor children, calling them violent extremists who must be dealt with. No matter where you fall on the political spectrum, you should realize the danger that kind of rhetoric, combined with pictures and locations, has put our children in. This user, with an 88 at the end of his username, responded to Chloe Kick their asses. These freaks are a disease. Kill it before it spreads. If you don't know what the 88 stands for, Google is free, and I implore you to look it up.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. Our next speaker will be Melissa Foxhoven.
Hi, my name is Melissa Kelly Foxhoven, and I'm a parent of LSR7 children since, well, feels like forever. I initially signed up to talk about a teacher, and since she was going to be recognized, I think I'd like to go ahead and say her name anyway. So my daughter is a senior this year, and we had the great blessing of having one of the most inclusive, loving, smiling, caring human beings as her vocal arts teacher. And it is very fitting that she is student or teacher of the year. So my daughter came home yesterday with a letter, she's a senior, from Miss Hahn, that they wrote when they were in middle school. And it talked about what their goals were, what they wanted to be when they grow up. And it also talked a lot about her as a teacher. And I was going to talk about inclusion and acceptance and loving and how we have become divisive, because that seems to be the topic that I talk about a lot. But when I tried to pull it together, I wanted to be positive and kind and constructive. And the first person that came to my mind when I thought about it was Holly Dawn. And I think oftentimes we talk about decisiveness and ugliness, and we want to point out every bad thing we can find about somebody. It's so important that we catch that ugliness in that person, that we forget that there is joy and love and music and happiness, and a letter that my daughter brings home 5 years, 6 years later, to show that there was a teacher who loved her, who loved every single child in that classroom. And as we leave today, and I suspect the comments are going to get ugly and they're going to get mean, and we're going to talk about this and this and this and this and this, and we're not going to talk about the teacher who had the light, and we're not going to talk about the little girl who didn't want to sing in front of everybody because she was terrified, but now she goes and tries out for a D1 dance team with confidence, and she brings it back to that teacher. That's what we're here for. That's what they are here for, is to bring that confidence, that education, that love to every single student in this district, no matter who they are, where they come from, what they look like, even if we don't agree. But if your decision, what you want to do, doesn't bring the light, the love, the shining, the music, I ask that you reevaluate what you're saying, and you're reevaluating what you're putting forth in the world. But I want to recognize what happened to my child as she gets ready to go to college and who she remembers. Good is all I'm going to talk about. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. Now we'll welcome Madison Grubbs.
Hello, I'm a 5th grader in Lee Summit. Today I will be talking about my story. I've had suicidal thoughts since the age of 5, so depression isn't new to me. I've been bullied at my school for a while, and I have talked to the teacher about it, and nothing has been solved. Those things the bullies have said get stuck in my head as if they were a song on repeat. Someone I thought was my closest friend has hurt me more than I imagined. Now I have trust issues too. Some day I feel great, others I can't even get out of bed. One day I might feel as free as a bird flying in the sky, and other days I feel like I'm in a cage. I smile on the outside while on the inside I feel like I'm dying. I have gone through so much, and the negative thoughts in my head get worse each day. I have tried a lot of tools to help manage my mental health. Some tools are reading my Bible, holding my stuffy, and even playing with my fidget toys. All I want to do is help people that are struggling just as I am. If a fifth grader can go through all this, think of all the younger kids. It's not only teens and adults, but children too. I'm here today to say I'm not afraid and to help others out there who are too afraid. Too afraid to say, hey, I need help. They want help and love. They want to be loved by their friends and family. I hope you consider organizations that help bring hope to people like me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Madison. Now we'll welcome Kristen Grubbs.
You call it belonging, equity, inclusion, but all it's caused is division, exclusion. You say our students are top priority, but the CSIP and budget reveal the majority of our district's focus is not academics, rather a privilege and racist epidemic. Let's throw 672 G's at Panorama surveys and platform, please. I'll spare you the sermon, and on the Panorama platform, my April comments do well to inform. But Panorama surveys, you say, will improve our teachers' ability to assess and improve our kids' belonging so they can improve their grades, their awareness, so then they improve their success in life. But I want you to prove to me and all the taxpayers, to me and all the naysayers, to me and all the moms and dads, to me and all the students and grads, that nearly 3 years of surveys are worth it, that questioning kids' self-worth is worth it, that forcing them to assess their thoughts is worth it, that asking them whether they belong is worth it. How about we let Panorama decide if equity methods have closed the divide? But first, let's remember the issues at hand, or else we may not understand how effective the surveys are at improving the academic path of its respondents' choosing. Just this week, we made the news for protests and violence when students refused to allow a group of students to gather peacefully, respectfully, and safely, rather. Property was damaged, the meeting cut short, admin allowed the chaos to thwart a group's attempt to come to the table, to seek understanding and share in the goal, to give every student a chance to be heard, not just the ones that are loud and stirred to react and sabotage opposing views, instead of welcoming diverse interviews. How would we do on these surveys if asked? Let's go through a couple questions real fast. How often do we worry about violence at our schools? How often does admin use the tools of lockdown measures and discipline for fights, protests, or threats within? Panorama asks, how confidently students can talk about race honestly? What about life, liberty, and faith? How come it only agitates? Why can't kids just talk on the level, seek understanding and peace, not wrestle with whether they're allowed to meet without threat of harm or hate speech, against their views, against their choice, to be a leader and find their voice? Nearly 3 years of surveys have done nothing to help the kids who come to school to get an education, grow in knowledge and preparation. Instead, they're bathed in expectation to choose their cause and pledge fixation. Where's the love in all this mess? How does one belong unless they toe the line of equity inclusion? How in the world is this the solution?
Thank you, Kristen. Now we'll move to Camille Johnson. Is Camille Johnson here?
Hello, I'm Camille Johnson, and I don't represent any specific organization, but I am here as a new parent to the school board meetings and as a concerned parent in the LR7 district. I thought I was going to prepare a speech tonight to talk about history books, educational books, talk about what are we doing in the schools to make sure our kids are well-rounded. But each day, as the news passes and things continue to happen, this speech continues to change. So then I wondered to myself, how do I come and talk about an inflammatory issue without being inflammatory? How do I come to talk about something that angers me without angering those with opposing opinions? Because your opposing opinion matters too. And as I listen to people here, I just wonder, how have we gotten so far gone in our society that we cannot come together? How have we gotten so far gone in our society that as adults, we can't come together in order to show our kids and model to our kids, this is how we work through problems. This is how we work through things. It's challenging for me to see this. And I think to myself, how did I even end up at a school board meeting? I was just gonna be the mom at home cooking. I leave the surgery to the surgeons, I leave the hairstyling to the stylists, and I leave education to the educators. Here I am as a non-educated educator expert trying to figure out how do we come to a place where we can both have organizations, where we can, when both sides or all sides can exist together and still have differing views. How do we do this? I didn't come to ask a question necessarily, but just to plant the seed. I recently watched a movie that's been out for years, and one of the things they quote in the movie is something called thug life. Now, I know immediately when you hear that, you may think violence. I know immediately when you hear that, you may think rap music. But many people don't know that that's actually an acronym. Thug life is the hate you give, living little infants, F's everyone. Meaning, us as parents and us as adults, our babies aren't born this way. Our babies aren't born choosing and hating and disliking each other. We instill these values in them, just like we instill morals, ethics, yes ma'am, no ma'am, thank you please. We are instilling these things in them. And I just ask us as adults, and I'm gonna continue to come to these meetings because I wanna bridge the gap. We can coexist even though we differ. We can coexist even though we have opposing opinions, and we can talk to each other and not be inflammatory with each other. I don't know how to stress it enough. Again, I am going to continue to come back, but I really want to see us be able to work together because our children are suffering.
Thank you, Camille. We have Robin Walsh next. Robin?
My name is Robin Walsh, and I am the founder of Choose to Live. We're a local nonprofit that was created to raise awareness for suicide and prevention. We are committed to helping not only our community, but as well as the communities that surround us. Suicide is the second leading cause of death amongst the kids of ages 10 to 34. Since starting the nonprofit less than 2 years ago, we have been in touch with many local families that have faced loss by suicide, many of which directly impacted Lee Summit schools. Our youngest loss was 11 years old, and sadly this week, we are helping the family of a 12-year-old girl. Earlier this year, we had 7 suicides in just 12 days. This does not include the ones we don't hear about. I am a suicide survivor, and as I share my own journey with families I meet, they all wish their loved one could have spoken to me or any other person who has survived their own attempt. Hearing from survivors not only gives them hope, but also makes them feel understood and that each of us truly do matter. We must get these kids to speak out when they are facing hardships so that they can obtain the help that is much needed and deserved. We will be holding an awareness evening in mid-August prior to school starting. We will be showing a documentary of a 16-year-old survivor who openly shares how she has overcome her struggles, even though her attempt has left her paralyzed. We will have counselors present for those who may need to speak to someone. We will also be speaking about Hope Squad, a peer-to-peer program that can be used in the schools at all levels. I have already presented this program to someone on faculty with Lee Summit Schools. I personally have gone for the training and have witnessed the success in a high school, middle school, and elementary school. One school had the program in place for 15 years and had 0 suicides in 13 of those years. These students of all ages are opening up to one another and as a result are getting the help they need. I plead with all of you to please research this program and consider placing Hope Squad in our schools. I have such belief in this program that our nonprofit will agree to support the first school as a pilot school by helping sponsor the program if the funding is needed to get it started. Suicide is no longer a school issue. It is no longer a family issue. It is a community issue, and together we can help save these students. If the motto of our district is, we prepare each student for success in life, let's start by doing all that we can to not only show them that we support them, but that their life is worth living. We have lost too many kids in these communities. Suicide does not discriminate. The next loss could be, in fact, one of your very young children. Please research hopesquad.com, myascension.us, and choose number 2, live.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Next we'll have Emily James.
Good evening, Superintendent Buck, school board members, and district administrators. My name is Emily James, and I have lived in Lee Summit for 5 years, currently raising 4 children in the district. I'm also a member of the Suburban Balance. First and foremost, I would like to thank the school board for unanimously passing the district's equity policy. Like so many of my fellow parents, I want to urge the board to stay focused on the equity commitments that are outlined in the policy and to never lose focus on what's at stake, and that is our children. The goal is to see improved educational outcomes for all students. We must never forget that's what we're advocating for. Parents are not looking for the district to check a box and have an equity policy on paper. We want to see real systemic change. With that said, I would like to read the first paragraph in the equity policy that states, each LSR7 student deserves an equitable education. The Lee Summit School Board is uniquely positioned to prioritize educational equity in order to maximize each student's full academic and social potential in a school culture that maintains individual dignity and promotes a sense of belonging. Each student must be able to see themselves in the curriculum as well as in their teachers. It matters. Let's make sure school curriculums are currently responsive. Studies have shown that a culturally responsive teaching creates a powerful connection between classroom lessons and diverse student backgrounds. This type of teaching supports the initiative of empowering all students to excel in class. We must continue the efforts to build strategies to design and deliver culturally responsive lessons that connect students' culture and experiences. Doing this ensures student learning encounters are relevant and effective. It also acknowledges and values the legitimacy of different cultures, not just dominant cultures of society. Another added benefit is that it encourages intercultural understanding and appreciation for every student. As we approach the end of the school year, I'm hopeful that the district will be creative in its future hiring techniques to ensure the district keeps up with the changing demographics. We want our students to have the same opportunity to reach their full potential just as their classmates. The policy also states that the board has committed to holding itself and all LSR7 staff accountable for maintaining a culture of educational equity. Time is of the essence. Let's continue to provide the LSR7 staff with the diversity training they need. Let's continue to support and retain teachers and help them feel confident to teach the true and full history of our students. And let's be intentional about changing the trajectory of educational outcomes for minority students and removing all barriers that hinder them from receiving quality education so that each student is prepared for success and that they all feel as though they matter and belong. Each time we come to this board meeting, we'll be asking, how is the district doing on meeting its goals and commitments as they pertain to the equity policy? We appreciate your continued support. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily. Now we'll have Marla Stout.
I'm Marla Stout, and I'm a parent in the district. It would be easy for me to stand here and tell you how it feels to be the parent dropping off their kid Wednesday morning at Lee Summit West, and for the first time since kindergarten, the first school day after Sandy Hook, say 2 words that chill anyone that has ever loved a child: stay safe. But no matter my or my child's beliefs, sexual orientation, religion, or politics, we have the ability to mask ourselves because we are white. This week, I was reminded that while I'm the parent of an LGBTQ child and female, my voyage with discrimination has honestly been short. For parents of and with children of color, it's been a much longer journey. As a white mother, I'll never be able to experience the feeling of sending my child off to kindergarten in a school system where very few teachers, administrators, or staff share or even know a thing about their culture. I'll never have to comfort my child because peers want to touch their hair, make fun of their features, use unacceptable terms, or ask silly but hurtful questions about them because they didn't know better. I'll never know what it's like to live in a world where people use the word colorblind simply so they can bypass recognizing that my and my child's freedom is vastly different from their own. As a white parent, I'll never have to worry that my teenage son will be judged as a hoodlum, criminal, or one to watch simply because he wears a hoodie in warm weather. When that son is ready to drive on his own for the first time, I won't have to remind him about the talk. I'll never have to watch that child walk out of a store, reach into his pocket for candy, or protest for his rights, die, then watch his killer walk free because my child wasn't really the victim. I'll never be the black professional that works hard to excel in school, attend college, work my way to the top of my profession, and have people around me whisper, affirmative action. I'll never buy the nicest house in the neighborhood and have my neighbors whisper, there goes the neighborhood, and mean it. I'll never walk in my neighborhood, think a neighbor is stopping to chat, only to be asked to prove that I belong here. Do I believe in free speech, even if it doesn't mirror my own? Yes. Do I believe that kids should have clubs that make them feel included? Yes. But no one in this district or elsewhere should want children in clubs under the umbrella of an organization that gives lip service to inclusion on their website when in reality there are pages and pages of examples that prove the true intent of their hearts and minds. That intent is hate. I've had to say stay safe to my child twice in 10 years. The black mom whose journey with hate has been over 200 years has to say it every day. I respectfully ask the board and our administrators to allow free speech, but deny any organization into LSR7 that's mission states one thing, but actions prove another. Thank you.
Thank you, Marla. Our next speaker will be Kaylee Williams.
Hello, my name is Kaylee Williams, and I will be graduating from Lee Summit West High School this Saturday. I am here tonight to express my concerns about the Turning Point USA at Lee Summit West and the handling of the club at the meeting on Tuesday. Turning Point USA is a national conservative organization that infiltrates college campuses and now high schools like Lee Summit West. The concern with this organization are not that they are a conservative group. The concerns are the disturbing tactics they use in the name of promoting their values. Also, they have a professor watch list and a school board watch list. As posted on their Twitter, now is the time to take up arms in the culture war and fight back against the prevailing establishment. When my mother and I expressed concerns to the admin and the team at Lee Summit West and Dr. Buck last week, we were met with dismissive emails that stated there was no such group and it was just a meeting of interest. Dr. Herzog said in his email that this is protocol for every new group. There was no statement nor acknowledgement regarding my concerns about Turning Point USA not being good for the students at Lee Summit West. During my time at West, I have been very vocal about the lack of equality and inclusion. I have had teachers and students challenge my ideas and make some valid points and offer other views that would make me think about things in a different way. That's what is supposed to happen in high school. That is preparing students for the future. We should not draw a line in the sand that is black or white, straight or queer, or liberal or conservative. We should be learning how to openly and freely discuss our differences without name-calling. Tuesday at Lee Summit West was my last academic day as a student in the LSR7 Schools District. The memories I will take with me from that day are disgrace, disgust, and shame. I will be disgraced that our administration team made a choice not to listen and acknowledge my concerns and other concerns from students. Disgust that our admin team either made a choice to pit students against each other voluntarily or didn't care enough about the students to simply restructure the organization and make an informed choice when encouraging students to proceed forward with this group. And shame that my school admin, LSR7, and the board appear to be unwilling to say all students matter and enough is enough. Do better, Lee Summit. For all students in this district, we are distracted outside of school with all kinds of divisive acts Don't allow the inside of schools to be one of those places as well. What I mean is, as stated by Turning Point USA, all the events that occurred on Tuesday, we were called insane leftists, disrupt the Turning Point USA meeting, violently smashed glass table. Was there a table broken? Yes. Was it a liberal leftist, or was it a frustrated high school student who wasn't being heard? Allegedly, there is not a Turning Point USA chapter at Lee Summit West, but it seems only the Lee Summit West admin team, Dr. Buck, and the school board are the only ones that are not aware of what has already occurred. And I ask you this simple question. What would you feel if you had to go to school and fear your life every day? Thank you.
Thank you, Kaylee. Now we'll move on to 5.01, our board reports or meetings attended. And I think this evening we'll start to the left. So Board Member Foley, would you like to kick us off?
Okay. So I was just recently elected in this position, so I haven't had an opportunity yet to attend many meetings. But I did want to highlight an event that I got to attend recently. I went to an allied health showcase where some students were able to present some health concerns that they learned about in the community. And it was just really encouraging to see the students do research and then present their research to people that were going around and asking them questions and kind of grading them on their presentations. So I just want to congratulate them on that. They did a really great job.
Thank you. Board Member Marshall?
Thank you, President Campbell. Well, all of my committees were in, recess for May to reset. However, the last one that we had was the Business Roundtable, and we got a very good school district finance 101 from Mr. Nathan Holder. And I'm telling you what, as many times as I sit through that presentation, I always find something new that just didn't occur to me. So I appreciate you, Mr. Holder, for making it plain when it comes to district finances. And lastly, I just wanted to say that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And although, May is designated as Awareness Month, there's many of us who mental health is a daily walk for us. And I just want to remind all of us that while each of us are responsible for our choices, our actions, and our speech, as free as it is, we should also be cognizant of how those things impact those around us currently and for years to come.
Thank you. Thank you, Board Member Marshall. Board Member Vice President Fritchie?
Thank you. Holly's mom, she said. I just wanted to thank you for your comments on Mental Health Awareness Month, Board Member Marshall. My last meeting as our board representative to Lee Summit Educational Foundation was an advisory board meeting at Mason Elementary School on April 26th. I also had the opportunity to travel with the Peak Patrol to deliver Peak grants at Pleasantly Middle School, Great Beginnings, and Meadow Lane Elementary on May the 6th. And that's always a lot of fun because all of those great grants that go to all of our teachers out there, almost $60,000 worth of grant money, are going straight into the classrooms to supplement our teachers and help them teach our kids. So that's awesome. Passing the torch for Lee Summit Educational Foundation to Board Member Eslick from here on out. So she'll be giving those reports after this. The next thing I'd like to visit about is Struggling Readers Parent Group. We've had, since our last board meeting, we've had 2 Struggling Reader Parent Group meetings on April 26th and May the 12th. And during these past 2 meetings, parents and LSR7 educators worked very well together in these 2 groups to focus on advocacy and resources for parents and staff. And this team has made just fantastic progress and is completing tasks in each of these 2 areas to have plans and materials ready for the 22-23 school year. This team has worked very hard this year. Highlights include a new web page with resources for parents and teachers, a new brochure with a QR code to provide to our parents after their student has been identified from that initial testing with a possible reading deficit. A parent Q&A meeting opportunity after test results are communicated with parents, so parents can get their questions answered in a meeting in this type of room. The team plans to meet 3 times in the coming year in September, October, and February. So that group is not going away just because we did the heavy lifting this year. We've still got work to complete, so that'll keep going, for next year. Board Member Marshall already talked about Business Roundtable, so I won't go into that. But this is just, if you guys all know, particularly if you have a senior, how busy the month of May is. But we had all kinds of ceremonies and meetings to attend this month. Of course, we had our board leadership meeting. We've had 2 of those actually, April 21st and May 6th with Dr. Buck and President Campbell. We had Project Lead the Way Biomedical Sciences White Coat Ceremony on May the 4th over at MIC, where we saw 24 of our students get their white coats. And Miss Kelly Foxhoven's son actually came back from pharmacy. He's a doctor now, a doctor of pharmacy, and he gave a few comments there, and her daughter got a white coat. International Studies and end of the year show at MIC, which was fantastic because our international studies students had all kinds of fantastic projects they were displaying, and they had foods from the countries that they've been working with internationally, and it was just a great show. If you missed it, you need to go next year, folks. That was May 9th. Of course, Dr. Buck mentioned all of our retirees and our retirement reception that was over at MIC with nearly 100 retirees. That was on May the 10th. That was a great celebration. And I just want to give a shout out to Katie Bergen for planning that and for our nutrition services because they provided excellent food for that. They did a great job. Also, it's already been mentioned, our Allied Health Sciences Student Showcase by Board Member Foley. That was just fantastic. I went to both the morning and the afternoon sessions on May the 13th and got to see all the kids' projects. I shouldn't call them kids. They're like the adults. They're so smart. They are really so smart. I just love going over to MIC and listening to their presentations. And then finally, this past Tuesday, I was able to sit in on the Dignity, Inclusion, and Belonging Sharing Symposium here on May 17th. This is where each of our schools have been working on plans on how they're going to incorporate belonging and dignity and inclusion into each of their schools, and they have a special plan for each of their schools. So it was great to hear those folks collaborate on that. So that's my report. Thanks.
Thank you, Vice President Fritchie. So we'll go to this side. Board Member Sparks.
I'm just going to add to the Dyslexia and Struggling Readers group. I'm excited about the incentives that are coming to get our teachers certified in letters. Last year we got to see a presentation about letters and the science of reading, and I think that's going to be very important to be able to see that throughout all of our school buildings, to be able to identify that and then also be able to give and meet the needs of all of our students. The other thing that I was able to attend was the early college prep. Actually, our last speaker was one that was able to gain some college education through Longview Community College. That is a program that I would like to encourage other juniors and seniors to talk to your counselors about, so that you can even graduate with an associate's degree when you graduate high school. And so I think do it. If you don't know the information, get with your counselors and say, tell me everything. And then parents, I would also like to encourage you, reach out to your counselors, reach out to your building administrators to really see what are all the options that are available to me. And then last but not least, just because this is who I am, I want to say, Madison, I see you. She was one of our speakers. So often we have to be cold. We have to be not interacting with people, but when I see a kid that's struggling, it's hard for me not to say that I see you. And to all of our students, if you need help, get it. reach out, find some help. All of our information is public record. Reach out to us. There's many people that I don't respond to, but one thing I do respond to is our students, because that's what we should be caring about and focusing on. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Sparks. Board Member Murdoch?
Just a couple of things so that I don't echo what everyone else has already been saying. First off, I did attend the Derby Day at Longview Farm Elementary School. I wanted to just highlight that only because the principal who opened the building, Dr. Ryan Rothstein, was able to come back and be a part of that. He came back from Pennsylvania to be there on for Derby Day, which is a pretty cool event for a very, very unique building for Longview Farm. And the only other announcement that I was going to have is congratulations to all of the graduates coming up here on Saturday, though I would say bring your coats, apparently. We look forward to that event every single year. And so congratulations to all of the graduates, parents, and families of those graduates. Thanks.
Thank you, Board Member Murdoch. Board Member Eslick?
Thank you. So also as a new board member, there weren't too many committee meetings that I attended, but as I made my list, there was actually a lot that we did since the last board meeting. So I just to start chronologically, on April 19th, I also attended one of the same DEI cohorts that Vice President Fritchie was referring to. So I also had an opportunity. I actually only intended to stay for maybe an hour, but I was really engaged in some of the groups and the conversations that they were having, and very interested in how they were going about implementing their belonging programs in their buildings. So I ended up staying almost for the entire session. So had a lot of work to make up on, but I was really thankful to have the opportunity to listen to some of the groups, because they were providing some very valuable feedback. Both board member Foley and I attended our new board member orientation, and then we also attended our MSBA new board member training in Springfield. So there's been a lot of training, not so many meetings, but lots of training. I also attended a groundbreaking for the Lee Summit Commerce Center to represent, board membership at that event, which was very cool, very interesting, and I appreciated the opportunity to attend. I also attended my first Lee Summit Ed Foundation Board of Directors meeting, and I will read those minutes in just one moment. And then I also attended our Finance Committee meeting that was yesterday morning. So I will go ahead and read some of these minutes from the Lee Summit Education Foundation. And I will just add on to what Vice President Fritchie was saying with Peak Patrol. I'll add a little color to that, because that's a really cool program that I'm learning about being engaged in this board of directors. So for the Peak Patrol, they visited the schools on May 5th and 6th to surprise this year's selected grant recipients, and LSEF awarded $59,904 in grants this year and helped secure an additional $17,000 through Shannon Booth to fund additional requests through Diploma Plus. In total, 53 grants were awarded this year, so that's pretty amazing. Very, very amazing work that the foundation is able to do and provide for our teachers and staff. LSEF also awarded 70 scholarships this year, totaling over $80,000. I am honored to serve as another new board member. We have two on the board of directors. I am honored to serve with Jim Green, who's a retired captain with the LSPD. LSEF is currently working to finalize a budget and the funding priorities for the 2022-23 school year. Plans are in the works to host a community breakfast on Friday, September 16th at East Trails Middle School. The breakfast will be hosted by Lee Summit Ed Foundation in collaboration with LSR7 and feature a State of the District segment with updates from Dr. Buck. Save the date and stay tuned for additional details for that event. And with that, I will conclude my update. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Eslick. And I just have a couple of items. I had the honor to attend a Girls Who Code session, and I just wanted to give that group of girls a shout out. They worked really hard that Saturday morning, and even more fun was to see their mentors, which were all Lee Summit West High School girls that mentored and helped the students then through the session. That was very exciting and very fun to see that learning going on on a Saturday. I attended the new board member training with board member Eslick and board member Foley, and that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. I learned some new things as well. I hope you guys did and enjoyed it also. So that was a really good day. I attended the Grow Your Own signing celebration. This was our first Grow Your Own signing opportunity, and so looking forward to growing that program year over year and the opportunities for our students that want to become teachers. If you're a student and you think you might like to teach, or you just like your teacher and maybe that's in your future, then I would investigate the Grow Your Own program as well. So I also attended our retirement celebration, and what an honor to recognize those staff members, teachers, everyone. Every one of those people touched the lives of our children, and just to honor and respect them and say goodbye in that way was just a real honor for me to participate in. I also attended the Finance Committee meeting, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. We've talked a lot about mental health this evening, and last night I had the opportunity to sit in on the webinar that Katie Bergen and some mental health folks shared, and that session was recorded. So I'm sure it's on our district website, and I would encourage every parent, I would encourage every community member to take an hour and watch that webinar. It was excellent. They gave tips for parents. They gave tips for students. They gave tips for anyone in our community. They gave excellent phone numbers to call if you're in trouble. Appreciate that they could reach out to us. Even better, if they're in crisis, to reach out to those phone numbers, and all that information is available. I'll especially point out, if you're a parent and you're not worried about your child and their mental health, that's okay. Please attend the webinar. Please review it, because you may have another parent that you're talking with that is in trouble. And sharing that information amongst our parents, sharing that with one of your students' friends, all valuable information. So I'd really encourage you to take a minute and take an hour and watch that. And that's everything for my committee reports. Thank you. So now moving on, we will move to 6.01, and that is the finance report. So I'll do the report this month, and then we'll have Board Member Eslick do the report next month. We were able to go through a number of items and appreciate everyone's time in sharing that information. We heard from Dr. Flack around the Discovery Ed Swank video streaming resources. And this is a replacement. Last year, Dr. Flack, you might remember, had working with teachers and getting recommendations and trying to be budget conscious and maybe save some money. We went with a new platform, the Learn 360 classroom video. And it just wasn't up to par. And their service, frankly, was not up to par as well. And so looking at vendors, this comes again at a price similar to what we had in the budget the year before and had paid the year before, but this is the recommendation. And what I love about Dr. Flack is I always know with him that he has engaged teachers, he has engaged people around the district for input around these, and makes that recommendation. He also made the recommendation around the social studies agreement, and so that provides us with additional opportunities in learning. As well as, and I don't see that on my list here, but that comes with the maps that will be used then, and the benefit of those maps, again, getting information from our teachers, those maps also work with the technology that we purchase. So the interactive boards that we have in many of the classrooms and we continue to implement, these maps will work with those boards as well. So really excited to support that as well. We talked about the contracts, 15,000 and less, the musical instrument purchase. This largely was a look at all of our middle schools, but especially with the East Trails Middle School. There are some instruments that are so big that we don't ask our students to bring their own to school for band or orchestra. Instead, we purchase those instruments and we let them use those while they're in the classroom. So like if your child plays a bass, a stand-up bass, instead of having to put the bass on the bus, you get to use the bass that's in the classroom. And so the bass on the bus. And so this item will purchase those for East Trails. It also checks in with our other 3 middle schools, makes sure those instruments are up to date and in place as well. And so supportive of that. We heard from Mr. Holder around the banking choice for our district. I love the evaluation and the RFP that they went through. He did point out that when we choose a bank for our district, there are some requirements that have to be followed. It must be in our county or in an adjacent county, and then they had some criteria that they reviewed. Interest rate was one, making sure that we were not paying fees, proximity of locations, because you know we are a very big district land-wise, and there are multiple places that collect money and need to deposit money. So with that, his recommendation and Dr. Miller's recommendation was around Central Bank of the Midwest, continuing our services with them again this year. We also talked with Lori Dinella, heard from Lori Dinella around the meal prices for 2022-2023. And those meal prices are going to see an increase. As she always shares with us, and I appreciate so much, nutritional services is a self-supporting department, meaning that we don't fund, from a district standpoint, we don't fund that. They fund as self-funding, and they do that through the meals and the a la carte items. They purchase their own equipment. They purchase all the products that they serve, things like that. So in doing the analysis, their recommendation is that we're going to need to raise those prices. And she was kind enough to go through with us, because one of the biggest concerns that we shared with her was not only are we raising prices this next year, but we know that due to the waivers that we receive from the federal government, our students and our families have not been having to pay for their breakfast and lunch items. And so those waivers are retiring. And she shared with us the great communication plan that has been working with Katie Bergen and team around sharing out. So definitely, if in the past you have been a free and reduced family, please make sure that you're enrolling in that program, because that's going to be really important as we identify and these prices increase. Also, they've been advertising these price changes will be on the website. It will be included in enrollment information that will go out. And so we just want to make sure that that communication is getting out to families so that you're including that in your budgets. She did mention something that I did not have awareness on previously, which was called District Angel Funds. And if you would like, that is a fund that you can donate to that then helps with folks and their lunch money and charging information. And so families can apply for those funds and receive those funds. And so that was a very interesting program as well. So those were the highlights that we had. We did have a few facilities items as well. I don't want to neglect Kyle on this. The roofing for Lee Summit West, Hazel Grove, and Paradise Park. So that will be within the capital budget. Actually, this is kind of a catch-up because we haven't done any roofing projects for the past 2 years. So we'll start these projects, they'll get initiated, and then they'll be done as supplies and materials come in by this vendor that is being recommended. Also of note, Kyle did put in the agreements. The work that's done on these roofing contracts will be done after school hours. So there's a benefit to our students in thinking about their learning as well. I really appreciated Kyle sharing that. Also, there's an agreement around the epoxy coating for floors, and actually, due to this vendor and their good work, we'll be spending less money this year on this than we have in the past, which with all the other rising costs is an amazing thing. So appreciate Kyle's work around that. Voss Lighting also recommending, so Lee Summit High School exterior lighting will be covered as a part of the bond program, bond project funds. Thank you again to our community for that. This item is for Lee Summit West and Lee Summit North that we'll be approving as a part of this. Any questions, board members, around anything I've shared? All right. Well, thank you very much. Then we'll move on and I will make a motion to approve the transfer of $2,943,257.69 from the general fund to the special revenue fund.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Okay, let's just have a show of hands and say aye to all those that approve.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carries. We'll move on to 6.03. I move to approve the treasurer's report and payment of the bills.
Second.
All right, any questions or discussion on that? All right, again, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. All right, and now we'll move to items for decision, consent decision. Are there any items in here that anyone would like to pull out for a separate discussion or question?
Yes.
Board Member Foley?
Yes. Item 7.10, the East Trails Middle School.
All right, we'll pull that item out. And Linda, what will that item move to? 801? Oh, put it at the end? 801. Thank you. Board Member Sparks? All right. 802. All right, then can I get a motion?
You have another?
Oh, I'm sorry. Board Member Eslick.
No problem. 7.19.
Okay. 7.19, and we'll move that to 8.03. 719? Okay. All right. Can I get a motion, please, then, for the items remaining in the consent agenda?
I move to approve the remaining consent agenda items as presented.
All right. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right. Motion carries. So now we'll move on to item 8.01. And that was 710, East Trails Middle School and City of Lee Summit Development Agreement Amendment. Board Member Foley?
Yes, okay, so I just have a quick question on this. So it's something that
just a second, Board President. We should get a motion and a
move
second
for a
and
motion.
then discussion. I apologize for interrupting Board Member Foley.
No, appreciate that, Board Member Murdoch. Thank you. So can we get a motion on this item?
I will. I move that the board approve the development agreement amendment with the City of Lee Summit for the middle school number 4 project as detailed in the attachment.
All right. Any discussion?
Okay, yes. So I have received a question that's kind of circulated from a rumor, so I thought this was a great time to address it in regards to this delay. Since the revised wording allows for limited occupancy of the school facilities, there's been rumors that this could lead to students being delayed and being in a virtual situation because the space is not ready. So Dr. Buck, could you just address that concern?
Dr. Miller is going to come to the mic and share that answer. I know we've shared that with board members, but I appreciate getting it out there since it's out in the world.
No, I appreciate you asking the question. And so, you know, the sewer interceptor work is pretty extensive. They had to do quite extensive work boring underneath the railroads. But no, Kyle has done a great job in communicating with the city, and they've really indicated that we can occupy the property while that sewer interceptor work continues. At this time, we've not engaged in any discussion about any students going remotely. So that's not been any kind of internal discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So let's move forward. Any other questions around that? All right. Then let's move forward with a vote on this item. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Motion carries. And now we'll move to 8.02, which was 7.05, Board of Equalization Representatives. Can I get a motion?
I'll do it. I move that the board approve the appointment of Gary Fruits as the district's representative and Rob Lund as the district's alternate representative to the Jackson County Board of Equalization.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any questions? Board Member Sparks?
Yes. So my only question is, do we look at other candidates for this particular position, or are we satisfied with the performance of these individuals? I just kind of want to hear more about how do we just kind of just set on this, because I know that these are the same ones that were also voted on, approved last year.
Yeah, that's a fair question. So, and I'll be real honest with you. Mr. Fruits has served our district well for several years, and he's got extensive experience in both, commercial real estate as well as multifamily. So understanding that market is really pretty critical. Mr. Lund, who's his alternate, was a former member of Business Roundtable who has similar experience, and that's why he was asked to serve as alternate. One of the things that we do periodically is Dr. Buck and myself, we meet with the representatives of the Board of Equalization. We have discussions on really how things are going, especially when we get to appeals. Next year could potentially be a big year for appeals. And the other thing that we do is we reach out to members of the county. What's the feedback they're receiving? Because it's really important that our representatives have a good idea of what the current valuations are, because when it gets to the appeal process, they have to have a good idea of what's a fair market value, but also represent the district's interests. And so the feedback that we've heard to this date, we've got good representation on the Board of Equalization. There's history there. So as far as really going out and looking for additional candidates, have not done that, to be real transparent, just because we feel like we've been represented well.
And I'll add to that, one of the things Dr. Miller and I have done also is reach out to those who are involved and ask as well. They tell us Gary is the leader in the room. That people from throughout the county who serve on the Board of Equalization refer to Gary and look for his leadership. So not only has he represented the district well, he is also one of the leaders within that group.
Thank you. If Gary's listening or watching, this is not to question his capability of doing it, but I just wanted to make sure that we are looking at other options, and that we are making sure that we are always putting our best foot forward. Thank you.
And we use the alternate as kind of someone that can, to build our bench, build that capacity as well. So I thought I'd add that.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion? All right, let's move to vote on that. All in favor? Oh, board member, no worries. Board Member Eslick.
I just had a short question, actually, just for my own knowledge. This representative, is this a compensated position? Where does the compensation come from for this role?
It does not come directly from us. It comes from the county, but there is modest compensation for the time commitment.
Thank you.
All right. Having no other questions or discussion, we'll move to vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So now we'll move to 8.03, which was 7.19. And that is Integrative Vision Solutions. And this is mobility services. So, can we have a motion on that?
I move that the board approve the usage of Integrative Vision Solutions LLC for orientation and mobility services.
Second.
All right. Any questions or discussion? Board Member Eslick?
So mine is a continuation of a question that I posed earlier, and I did get an answer. And my question was regarding the contract with this company, and it had to do with travel, because currently in the contract, we pay the contract employee at the same rate, which is $200 an hour, for their travel. And so my question was whether we could negotiate that to be either they're not compensated for their travel, because most contractors in other capacities are compensated from the moment that they start work, wherever they are beginning their time, or we compensate if the employee is traveling between buildings throughout the day or something. I'm not sure if that's what's included. Maybe that's a question as well. But could we pay them instead the IRS rate? Is this something that we could discuss further?
Krista Battaglia did say that she could reach out and connect with the agency. I did not hear back from her before the board meeting, so I'm not sure that she's been able to connect with Sean yet. I will say that this is definitely one of the many fields in special education that is in a shortage right now, and so there are limited options in terms of agencies that provide these services, and so many of them are traveling to several districts within the area. I get from other special education directors in other districts, we email each other, does anybody have an agency that has anybody available right now for vision or for orientation and mobility? So it's definitely a field that has probably a good market value right now because they're hard to come by.
Okay,
But
thank you. Oh, sorry,
we
I don't want to cut
can-
you off.
That's okay. If the board is more comfortable, we can reach back out to them and see if that's a possible negotiating point, but I'm not sure that it is when we negotiated the contract last year.
Okay, thank you. So it sounds like what you're saying is if we try to negotiate that into the contract, it could have a harmful impact on our ability to obtain those services. Is that kind of...
It may be more difficult. I just don't know that how many other options exist for those services right now.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you. That
Mhm.
helps.
I think my question, does someone else, go ahead, board member
I was just
Sparks.
going to follow up, and this might be yours. I was just going to follow up. Is it a standard? Is that standard with the other companies that other districts may be using to also include that traveling?
I don't know that it is a standard, but when we negotiated the contract initially, we had another company that I would have to go back and check that for sure, but I feel like we paid additional for travel for that company as well, but I can go back and check. And then they no longer had an orientation and mobility specialist. That person left, and then in the middle of the year, we had to try and find somebody new, and it ended up having to be a new agency.
What is the detriment if we do table this particular item and possibly approve it later to get those answers?
I would be comfortable reaching out and seeing if we could put this on the June board agenda. If it pleases the board, we can certainly do that. We have to have some services in place for our students for next year, and we don't have somebody certified in district yet.
Will it hurt us in any way if we do delay till June?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Board member Murdoch.
Is it standard practice to renegotiate a contract that we've already done when this is a renewal and not a new contract?
I don't.
We've
know the
already
answer to
we
that.
have this contract, and this is a renewal. This is not a new contract.
Correct.
Right?
We engaged in a contract with this organization last school year.
Right. And so then my second question on this would be, is the travel that they're getting compensated for at the start of their school day, or is it when they arrive at a building then have to go from building to building to building?
It's written as their hourly rate for the amount of travel, and each invoice indicates an hour or two of travel as part of their trips for Lee Summit.
And I would just offer to the board that there are many agencies that compensate for travel, especially in high demand fields. So if it's the will of the board to table it, I would highly recommend we don't table it. But that's just my opinion.
I think we have a motion and a second, so probably we need to vote on that. Yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry, Dr. Buck.
Not a
please
problem.
go ahead.
So we do have staff members that travel from building to building, and it's part of their workday, so it's part of their hourly rate while they're traveling. So we already have that as part of their workday.
I would understand that point. I think to board member Eastlick's point, are we paying them to get to us? And if that's not if we don't have a clear answer on that, then that's the reasoning why I would want to table this. And I think to Ryan's point, I think it's also fair that this is a renewal, but we have new members, and that's just kind of what happens in school boards. And I think that we need to consider our new school board members and their concerns. Thank you.
So if I look at 5A, says an hourly rate of 200 begins when they arrive at the first location. So it does not count their travel time to start their day. It starts after they start the day at the location.
Board Member Eslick?
What line did you say, Dr. Bach? Sorry.
5A, I don't know what page number. Page number 3 of 6, 5A. It's about quarter way down. So an hourly rate of $200 starts when they initially arrive.
Well, then 5B says an hourly rate of $200 for travel to and from the hiring entity's location. That's what I'm referring to, is if
Correct.
we're paying, if this employee, or this contractor lives an hour away from the first building at which they begin work, are we paying them $200 to get there? That's my question. I do not begrudge an employee traveling if they start at one building and their day consists of 6 different trips. Absolutely, pay them, they're working. I understand that. And this is not a service that's provided solely in one building. I understand that. I'm specifically talking about getting to and from the first place at which they begin working for LSR7.
Appreciate, and this has been really good discussion. Does anyone else have any questions, concerns? I will just share, I think from a vendor standpoint, we may need to, right, a vendor that you're working with may be different than how we would maybe work with our own employee. Any other questions, though, concerns? Then I'd like to move forward with a vote. All in favor, so the motion, Linda, could you help us with a repeat on, the motion was move that the board approve the usage of Integrated Vision Solutions, LLC, for orientation and mobility services. And we had a second on that. So all in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
It was 4-3. 4-3 it passed.
All right. Okay. So we'll move forward with item 8.3. Motion passes. All right. Now moving on to item 9.01, board priorities update. And who's going to start us off? Dr. Barger? Great.
Good evening. There'll be a number of us presenting this evening. One of the things that we wanted to do as we talked about our board priorities and we wrapped up this school year and think towards summer where there may be either extension or change of board priorities, we wanted to really remind everyone that throughout the course of the year as we came up and presented on board priorities, we presented each board priority separately, right? We presented increase the academic achievement of every child through a focus on innovative practices, student well-being, and enhanced accessibility to educational opportunities. And I typically presented that. And then meet each student where they are by utilizing an equity lens and decisions, actions, practices, and resource support. And Shelley Sanders typically presented that, and then strengthen communication that builds engagement, collaboration, and confidence with both internal and external district stakeholders, and Katie Bergen typically presented those. And while you'll hear from all three of us tonight, what we were hoping to do tonight is to really reinforce the idea that when you take those 3 board priorities and then you also consider the 18 action plans that we have in our CSIP, that really what we're talking about is unified work, overlap and alignment of the work that's happening on a daily basis. And so although we have been providing updates priority by priority through the course of the year, what we decided to do is each of us highlight 2 examples of intensive work that demonstrated the overlap of at least 2 of these priorities and or multiple action steps within the CSIP. So I'll highlight a couple and then we'll pass the baton from there. And at the end of that, there were also a few specific items that we were asked to provide a brief overview to that were specific requests of board leadership, and we will share some of that as well. So when we talk about the first example, I'd like to highlight some instructional collaboration that was largely orchestrated and coordinated by the following people. Dr. Flack, I'm probably going to forget someone now that I'm doing it off the top of my head. Dr. Flack, Dr. Janeway, Shannon Booth, Rexanne Hill, I think that was everybody, right? And what the charge was to ensure that as we think about social and emotional learning and real world learning and inquiry, which are all in our CSIP, and all align with various board priorities. And we think about how we best communicate to our staff that these are not separate things, but they are aligned work and part of our work, was to develop a way that we could implement that into our curriculum. So what we did and what they did was take those concepts and provide professional learning on each of those to all of our instructional team, which includes curriculum specialists, department chairs, instructional technology specialists, and a few others. And they learned together about what those things are, and then those teams worked together to build a plan so that they can have Wayfair marks in our curriculum, indicating as people open the curriculum, as teachers open the curriculum, it's very clear to them right within their existing curriculum where a lesson for real world learning is, where an inquiry lesson is, where an SEL lesson is. Right now we're at the point of identification, but the next step is then to provide exemplar lessons. So a teacher, a brand new teacher, could click and go, not only is it here, but someone's written a lesson plan for me if I want to, and it's embedded. So this is one of the examples of multiple people across multiple departments utilizing board priorities and CSIP to generate work. The second that I will highlight really is largely championed by Dr. Kenny, and that is the MTSS RTI Revive. Our district has used RTI as a support for elementary students as a means for identifying students who may qualify for special education. We started that. Emily and I were trying to go back in the Wayback Machine. We're pretty certain it was the 2013-14 school year, and we were really one of the first districts to utilize RTI to the extent that it was, and much credit to Dr. Miller and that she was one of the leaders in that initial work. Over those past years since, it has really shifted to an MTSS approach, multi-tiered system of support, in which it is not just about responding academically to instruction, but grew into how students are working through behaviors, how they are working through emotions and well-being, and how they are working through academics, the whole child approach to systems work. So over time, since the first implementation of RTI and the shift to MTSS, creep happens, right? We start to creep away from some of the fidelity to things, and people try something a little different, and interventions change and assessments change, and so it was time for a reboot. It was time to recommit to consistency in these practices, and that is something that Dr. Kendi undertook with largely in part to the fact that using ESSER 3 funds, we were able to hire for the course of 3 years 2 MTSS specialists, and those MTS specialists worked with curriculum folks, they worked with assessment folks, they worked with lots of folks in special education to ensure that we are ready for our MTSS Revive, and we have scheduled into our professional development for all of our elementary teachers next year, professional learning on the new assessment that's coming in, interventions to support that assessment, and the path for working through that consistently. So really another one of those places where equity is at the forefront, really thinking about systems and communication being consistent across all of our buildings, and then obviously driven towards academic well-being as well. So those will be the 2 examples I'll provide, and then I will step aside and let Shelley talk a little bit about her 2 examples.
Good evening again. So happy to be up here to talk about 2 projects that have happened this year that will continue to roll in the next year, and one of them is actually already in place. But the first is the text review process. This was a collaboration between myself and Dr. Flack. It started off as a process action team to really look at what supports do we have in place for staff and students when looking at text to determine if it is culturally responsive and appropriate in our classrooms for whole group and small group. Dr. Flack and I collaborated with Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools. They had started this journey last spring, and so had a magnificent process in place, and so we were able to work with them. We also brought together 45 members of the LSR7 community to work through this process. We met about 6 times throughout the course of the school year. landed on 2 rubrics, one for fiction text, one for nonfiction text. The team also felt very strongly that we needed to have common definition for terms, so we landed on common definitions, and also a flow chart to determine if I utilize this rubric and I get a score of 3, what is my next step? If I utilize this rubric and I get a score of 5, what is my next step? And so that flow chart really guides that if I am reviewing a text and the score is between 4 and 5, or one of the subsections scores a 2, I need to have someone else review the text and score it also. And then we have common conversations about the score that the text had. If at any point we have a text that is high, so the goal is that if it's closer to 0, there's potential that there's few concerns or little concerns or no concerns. The higher the number gets, it could be potential concerns. And so then the next step is, what supports do we need to put in place to utilize this text? Is this the best text to utilize for this purpose? Can we provide an alternative text that can stand beside this? To really be intentional and thoughtful about the text that we're putting in front of students. It was really interesting as we started this process. There's an amazing group out of Dr. Flack's office that really worked to own this. We use collaborative classrooms in the elementary schools, and they were looking through those books that we've put in every classroom and realized that there were some books that we needed to look at. Contacted Collaborative Classroom and realized that they had pulled those books from their sets and offered alternatives. And so it was really cool to see that our process is aligning with collaborative classrooms in identifying texts that need to be reviewed. So at this point, I think last Friday, the last building went through their training, and that was Miller Park. So it was a 45 to 60-minute training. There was a core group of us that went out. We trained in pairs, and then sometimes we had to train individually because of snow days, and we worked through the process. I've had several staff members reach out to me. I've tried the tool. This worked. Have you looked at this? How can we do this? So it's been an amazing collaboration. We will continue this into next year to get staff at the point where they're leveraging text that they're actually utilizing in their classrooms to start having these conversations around text. So that is the first example. The second example I want to highlight is our English language development support. This is probably a hidden gem of our district right now. It is spearheaded by Melisha Colon, who is our coordinator for English language development. She is absolutely magnificent. We are in the process now, or she is in the process now, of gearing up so that all of our elementary students that receive English language services can attend school at their home school. So this will be 2022, 2023 will be the first year that happens. We will continue to have newcomer centers at our high school and middle school, and that'll be Pleasantly Middle School and Lee Summit High School. She will also offer TEL classes in August to support our gen ed teachers with this transition. She has been meeting with building principals, going out with building staff to support. We also have, this is probably the best part of this, we have the department established as one of their goals that they would like to take on adult English education. And so they currently offer free English classes for the adults in our community twice a week at Pleasantly Middle School. And so it's started in September, it ends in May. They even got a call from Longview Community College and said, "What are you all doing over there? Taking our people?" And she was like, "We sure are." And so it's open to anyone. They had 20 to 25 adults. We have 2 EL staff members that commit to doing that work. It will start again next August, I think she said. It will start. We also have a multicultural welcome center doing enrollment that's housed in this building. It was 1 week last year. It will extend to both weeks during enrollment. And so what will happen is we'll have translators on site, language line, and Melisha and her team does a fabulous job of sitting down with families and walking through an already complicated enrollment process and you add on a language potential barrier, and it's a lot. And so to be able to have that support and bridge that gap between our families and our buildings is fantastic. So those are the two things I will highlight tonight.
Good evening, Board of Education. It's a pleasure to round out our presentation with two more examples of that tight alignment between our current board priorities. I'm excited to talk to you about our new communication tool that Dr. Buck has particularly been supportive of this spring, which is our R7 Speaker Series. And so our R7 Speaker Series is a virtual webinar that we have piloted this spring. We held our first episode last month, and we just held our second webinar last night. And it's hosted through the Zoom webinar platform. And it's a way that we're informing our school community about our resources and our programs and some of the opportunities available to students. And it certainly supports our district's focus on equity and well-being and strong academics. So the concept behind the speaker series certainly supports our board priority focused on communication. It supports CSIP Goal 3.3, which is public engagement, and it also supports 3.1, comprehensive communication, and also meets our expectations for our public engagement requirements that are related to our equity plan. We had our first episode focused on successful school transitions. Our second episode was focused on another important topic, mental health support, particularly during the summer months. And I wanted to share a few reasons I'm really excited about this platform and why it's a valuable strategy. One, I think it really celebrates one of our best assets, which is our people. It's one thing to get a letter home from Brian Lindquist, Pleasantly Middle School principal, welcoming you to the middle school environment. It's another thing to be able to see sort of his visceral excitement about welcoming kids and being excited for 6th grade. I had a parent email me and say, when Brian really got going about how excited middle school was to accept 6th grade to the middle school environment, I got excited too, and I really just felt that in a different way than I would have otherwise. Another reason I'm really excited is certainly through the pandemic and also tools like our CSIP survey have really emphasized how we need to be better about providing a virtual option for our parents consistently. Certainly we're very excited to invest back in that in-person events part of what we do, but our parents have really responded to and are asking for virtual options when we can provide them. And that's also an equity benefit for parents as well. We know parents have a lot of things going on, and that providing a virtual option sometimes guarantees that they can participate when they otherwise wouldn't be able to if we were only hosting an in-person event. 3, what's been kind of cool is that these videos can live on in perpetuity. So one of the things that we're doing is, of course, offering the opportunity for parents to join in live. It's a pretty easy registration process, but if they miss the meeting or they can't catch the meeting, we're recording it, processing the video, captioning it for accessibility, and then uploading and sharing it in our newsletter, in our social media channels, and publishing it to the website. So that's just another thing that we're doing. We're hoping to create a dedicated web page where those videos will live on and people can find them in one spot. Another thing I wanted to focus on is not really a new concept for the communication processes here, but it's our superintendent engagement teams. And so those have been a collaboration between the superintendent's office, academic services, and certainly R7 students and staff. I listed some of the ways that we're collecting recurring feedback. Certainly we know that through our PRATs and sort of our one-time focus groups like a boundary study or maybe our CSIP group, those are ways that we collect feedback for very specific purposes. What's listed here is really reoccurring groups or reoccurring ways we're collecting feedback. And so the Administrative Roundtable is a new group that Dr. Buck formed this year. He revived the Teacher Advisory Committee, which had been slightly defunct for a couple of years. And so what I really did want to focus on tonight is our 3 student advisory councils. And so that's not a new concept in LSR7, but it's a new format that Dr. Buck wanted to try here, and it has been so successful. I have to tell you that the 3 student advisory councils has been sort of the pride of all the administrators, and so we've been kind of arguing about who gets to go with accompany Dr. Buck to meet with our 3 high school groups, because it has been such a pleasure to sit and have deep conversations about what's important to them and their school environment, and certainly Dr. Buck has brought some important topics to them. So things that we've talked about this year with our students is COVID-19 data, facilities, and how we build a belonging through facilities, activities and athletics, public relations, and so many more other topics. And so that's something I wanted to share. We have a picture here of our 3 high school groups together. They had met separately, but had actually asked us at the end of the year if they could have a tri-council day because they wanted to meet each other. And so that's something that we are going to implement each year as we continue the groups. And that's it for my presentation.
So then, in addition to the highlights that we had prepared for the board priorities and that alignment work, there were 4 updates that had been specifically requested by the Board of Education for a overview. And quite honestly, each one of these could be, lengthy presentations in themselves, but no worries. They really are a quick 10,000-foot view of each, just as a quick end of year update, knowing that there'll be opportunity in the fall for each to have more extensive review. And the first was a look at our spring NWEA data. Dr. Wright always does a great job of bringing data to the team, and will again in the fall with a comprehensive data review of NWEA, MAP, end of course exam, and that usually is presented. Used to be really, really dependable that it was July and August, but now I'm going to say it will be presented when DESE lifts the MAP embargo, which has been month to month depending on which year we're using. When we look at our NWEA, we know that there are growth and status measures. This is very simply a status measure. Think of the percentile the same way you think of it when you take your kid to the doctor. If they're in the 10th percentile, they're taller than 10% of the other kids their age. If you're in the 20th percentile, they're taller than 20% of the kids in their age group. The same works with this achievement percentile comparison. So what we did was we took a quick look at our spring NWEA data with the math score being on the left. And if you can look that the dark blue on the left in math, we have 18% of the students who took the test in grades 2 through 8 in the spring who were in the 0 to 25th per the first to 25th percentile, meaning that they, in comparison to their peers, that is where they are on that percentile denotation. 26th to 50th percentile, we have 27% of our test takers. In the 51st to 75th percentile, we have 33% of our test takers in math. And then in the 76th to 99th percentile, we have 22% of our students who were in that range for percentile rank. So that gives you just a very quick snapshot when you think about national comparison of how our kids are doing in terms of a summative result in math on that test, sort of where they are just in those quartiles. On the reading side, you can see same pattern, 0 to 20, or 1st to 25th percentile, 17% of our test takers. 26th to 50th percentile, 22% of our test takers. 51st to 75th, we've got 33% of our test takers. And then that 76th to 99th percentile nationally, we have 28% of our test takers. So again, just a snapshot of where we are from a status standpoint on a national percentile rank with one status test that we utilize. The next question that was asked of us was to take a look at recruitment and retention data, specifically as it relates to diversity, so I will turn it over to Dr. Carlson.
Yes, and thank you for the opportunity. And we are excited about what next fall is going to look like when we have that data in. But we are in the thick of our hiring season, and this is our busy time. Our HR team's been working really hard, and our hiring managers, our leaders, principals, have been working hard also to get great people in front of our kids. But when it comes to the CSIP, we did want to take a moment just to look at our recruitment retention data and show just a snapshot of the last 5 years at a high level. I know we'll be taking a deeper dive this summer when we meet, but looking at the progress we're making. 62 certified staff in 2017-18 school year. working with our students, and then the incremental change we've made since then till the current year of 111 students. So almost 50 teachers more that are diverse and working with our students. And then also just showed the percentage there to give some further context. Making progress. Also mentioned we've not arrived. We're not there. We've got work to do, and we're continuing to do that work, and our leaders are doing that work. Also thought we'd give a quick snapshot of classified staff and what our diversity looks like there for our classified staff over the course of the last 5 years and the incremental growth we've made over the last 5 years. But when looking at ensuring that our staff that works with our students looks like our students, we still have work to do, but we're making progress.
The next item that we were asked to highlight was our look forward with literacy, and I think largely because I know there was some specific requests that we were hoping that some of our patrons were hoping to see come out of our struggling readers team, and we're thrilled to be able to say that we are going to be able to move forward with that as well as a few other literacy options. So when we look forward to literacy professional development and opportunities for next year, one of the things the district is going to be able to offer is 45 available spots for teachers who volunteer to receive a stipend to conduct in-district letters training. Letters training is based on the science of reading and is a very strong program. This is focused on our K-2 teachers. And you might ask, why are we giving a stipend? This is a heavy volunteer effort. This is requiring 4 to 5 days of in-district time, which we would not provide a stipend for, and then approximately 60 hours of graduate level work in this field on their own. And so we know that a teacher who is opting into being in the letters cohort deserves that stipend for sure. And we've also asked principals to be very cognizant of what else we might be asking them to do. So our intention is to be able to do 45 slots a year. Theoretically, till every K-2 teacher can have it, until we have reached capacity where people are able in their worlds to be able to engage in that. So we will again offer this next year and the year after that with the idea of growing. And you may have seen some PR about some state-funded access to that. We actually have in-district facilitators, and so there isn't much benefit to us for taking advantage of that state access. We're actually going to use our in-district facilitators, which allows for us to get these 45 through year 1 without that year 2 obligation or commitment. We, as an additional piece from a tier 1 or that PD that everybody gets and the learning every student gets, that tier 1 learning, every single elementary building is going to give one elementary teacher at each grade level. So there'll be a kindergarten teacher from each grade level, from each school, a first grade teacher from each school, a second grade teacher from each school, a third grade teacher. We're going to take those 18 teachers at each grade level and divide them into 2 or 3 groups so that we've got groups of 6 or 8 or 9, however that works out. And then we're going to pair them with our ELA reading specialist, and we're going to give them 3 days of intensive collaboration together, utilizing our resources, utilizing our expertise in our curriculum specialists, and collaborating and visiting classrooms to understand how to best maximize teaching instruction using the resources that we have. And then we will continue with Wilson as our intensive support, which is the recommendation that the board approved as our Tier 2B, Tier 3 support for students who have worked their way through that pyramid of intervention or that MTSS process I discussed earlier. The last item that was specifically asked of us was to provide a quick highlight of interventions that the district is providing. And I sat with that question for a minute because there are numerous interventions, probably too many to list. In fact, I don't know that I could come up with a comprehensive list of interventions. So instead, I really thought about what new interventions were we able to put in place as a result of having ESSER 3 funding infused into our district. And when we look at that, we're looking at Ingenuity being a credit recovery software being utilized. We're paying for our BIS Summer Institute from that behavioral, social, emotional response to students. We did deep curriculum alignment, so much like I described with what's going to happen for professional learning with ELA. For math, we had our specialists put that together in packets or work paths. So it was a kind of a desktop version of what I described in the ELA. We put some money into that curriculum funding. I mentioned earlier our MTSS specialists developing that MTSS Revive. At our secondary schools, we have credit recovery facilitators, and we have, when we talk to them at the middle schools, they're talking about those kids who aren't getting Fs, they're not failing classes anymore, and they're able to early intervene. And at the high schools, we're talking about the numbers of credits that kids are recovering and getting back on track for on-target graduation and able to keep them in their home schools and a number of other really great things. We've provided some AVID travel. We can probably give some more information on what AVID is to the board in general, but AVID is a great program. Actually, that was highlighted, was it last board meeting? Lisa West, or maybe the one before that, where Lisa West AVID team came in and highlighted that. We funded some of the panorama through our ESSER funds, which we saw play a pretty big role in our D team presentation at work session. We also provided some stipends for even credit recovery. We know that some of our kids who are in credit lag need every minute in their day. And so then we also need some time to support them maybe outside of their day. So we had some funds available for staff to be able to support that. We provided Caring Schools Communities, which is aligned with our elementary ELA resource and is a social and emotional well-being set of lessons. Things along the lines of starting your day with a class meeting, how we process problems, how we behave in assemblies, how we interact with one another with really structured plug-and-play lessons for teachers to be able to use to support kids. We did set a little bit of money aside for high school SEL. We used a little bit of that for a speaker. There's still some sitting there, so that'll carry into next year. Wilson, which is that intensive reading. SIPs, also a form of reading in intensity. And then we paid for our K-8 summer school coordinator, again with the idea of expanding summer school to help prevent that summer slide. So again, lists much more numerous than this if we're asking about all interventions, but from those that were funded through ESSER 3 and are relatively new, this is what that is. So that was a lot, right? But really what we're hoping that you see is that when we come and present each board priority separately, and then we do a CSIP update, that really it's all coming together for this mission, and that when we bring our work together, we allow the CSIP to guide our work, which is then in line with the board priorities, and that while we highlighted 6 examples, we probably could highlight all of our work, because all of our work should be guided that way. So appreciate the opportunity, and if there are questions, I'm sure any of us would be willing to answer them.
Board Member Fritchie?
Yeah. In the area of interventions, just something that I thought I'd mention because in the Struggling Readers Parent Group, one of the subgroups that we broke off into was advocacy. And one of the things that the professionals, the teachers in the room, as well as the parents in the room talked about was are these colleges and universities really training our elementary, particularly our elementary staff, in the science of reading or, the important things like letters? And we had a pretty good discussion around that and talked about how it would be very important for school districts in communicating with colleges and universities to stress the importance of making sure that we prepare all of our teachers who are going to be teaching those basic concepts, those first readers, that they have some background instead of getting a 3-hour course in the history of education, which doesn't do a whole lot for you when it comes to classroom teaching, learning the science of reading, the concepts behind the science of reading, and perhaps even getting letters training for our students who are going to be going into the classroom. So I just wanted to bring that up because that was in that one group that we started this year, and that was, to me, one of the highlights of the points that came out of how important it is for us to make sure to ensure that our teachers that we're hiring have those skills. So we're not trying to make up for it on the back end now, like we are with sending them to letters training and hiring Wilson and all of these things. And, just whatever we can do to try to improve that process.
Yeah, absolutely. Form of advocacy there.
Board Member Eslick?
Thank you. I just want to thank everyone who just came up here and presented, because there was a lot of great information that was shared, and I really appreciate hearing about the looking forward with literacy. That's one thing a lot of parents have reached out to, I know me, about, struggling readers. I just think that's amazing, and I'm just so happy to hear that. So thank you for sharing that. So I have a question about, and this is probably for Shelley. It is on slide 6. So I have some concerns. So, well, let me start out by saying I understand what we're trying to do with this process, and I appreciate the intent. I really do. My question or concern is about the both labor-intensive nature of what this would entail, and also the very subjective nature of the interpretation that can go from one person to another when you're talking about a teacher looking at a specific piece of instruction material. What one person might find concerning, another person might not, and then do you continue to go back and forth, and it just kind of goes around and around? Is it productive? What's the feedback?
So I appreciate that question, because I think I probably did 8 trainings, and what ends up happening is that in the training we utilize a audio book on YouTube or a video book on YouTube, and what happens is we score individually, right? So nobody can talk, you score individually, and what will happen is you will have a spectrum of scores, right? And then what we do is start having conversations about, well, why did you score that and you scored that? And what people start doing is they start changing their score. I changed my score because I listened to your perspective and thought, I never even thought of it that way. I can see that now. What it is doing is giving a pathway for our staff members to have conversations that can maybe at times feel uncomfortable, that can maybe at times feel like, well, I don't know that I have the right answer, so I'll just stay quiet and just, because I don't want anybody to think I'm this or that. It is creating a safe and brave space to have some conversations about text. And when we start having conversations about text in this way, we just get a little more wiser about perspectives, right? We don't have to land on it, but I absolutely see how this could be perceived that way. So what can I do to make sure that if that is a perception that could be had, that I can combat that ahead of time, so I don't put kids through anything unnecessarily that they don't need to go through. So it has actually been the opposite of conversation. Like, the conversations have been the total opposite, where sometimes we agree to disagree, but most times we move. And I lived it, because the team that, the training team, we did it amongst ourselves, then we took it back to the team of 45, and then we trained on it. So we did it multiple times, and when I go train, I keep that sheet that had my first scoring on it, and then all my X-outs and notes from when I modified my score, and then I show, this is what it's about, right? It's about having conversation and adjusting if we need that. In regards to time intensive, our big thing was try it out, right? There's been no district mandate that you have to do it on every book, that it had, none of that is there. But we heard, or I heard, I'll just speak for myself, her staff say very loudly and clearly, we need some guidance on this. You say that we want to make sure that we don't do harm to kids. You say that you want us to use, we need something to help us make these decisions, and that's what we provided. It's also going to be a living tool. The team that trained it and got feedback, we're going to sit down this summer and make some revamp to the tool, but we had to start somewhere.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Sorry, just one more clarifying question. Thank you for bearing with me. Is the intent, if something is reviewed and let's just say it's flagged as some concern or major concern, is the intent to help the teacher guide the conversation around the book? Or is the intent to decide we're not going to use this book or this text or whatever, I guess the question is, are we eliminating it, or are we using it as a tool to say, this can be concerning, we need to be sensitive to this and how we talk about it and guide the conversation with the students and help them navigate a difficult text? Is that the intent?
I think the intent is both, right? So I think it's trusting our professionals to make those decisions based on the text. I think ideally, it's also important to remember, I'll go back to this, that this is only for text being used whole group and small group instruction. We will always allow our kids to pick whatever text individually. But if we are teaching from a text, we want to make sure that we've viewed it through multiple lenses and perspectives so that we can build in those supports. Hey, this is going to come. Let's have this conversation. Oftentimes what happens sometimes with text with sensitive natures, especially the longer text, teachers will do that upfront work at the beginning, and then they'll be reading this text for 6 weeks, and we don't hit that again, right? Systematically layering in that support throughout that text. Also, really thinking about the purpose of utilizing the text, right? I think matters a lot, and sometimes we think about it, but actually pairing that together to make sure that if this is the purpose, this is what I'm trying to teach, is this the best text to teach it? And the text that we trained from, I had teachers who walk out who said, I'm going to buy this book. I think it's great. Had other teachers walk out and was like, I'm never using this book whole group again. Just depends, right? But it's not to take anything off the table. It's to ensure that we provide support in whatever we use for kids, right? That is the ultimate goal. But sometimes it will remove books from that whole group and small group, or allow staff to pair it with another text, right? That could balance that out, depending on the purpose.
I really like that latter option. I appreciate that.
Yep.
I think that's a really good idea. I appreciate your comments. Thank you for explaining that. Can I move on to another question? Is that okay? Thank you. Appreciate it. I had one question about slide 9 on the superintendent engagement teams. And this may be a quick question, so I don't know if Katie needs to come up or if you can answer. So my question on the recurring feedback, maybe this isn't the right place for it and you can tell me that, but I don't see parents and families on that list. Can you speak to where we would be getting some of that feedback?
Well, we have many of our, can't tell if this is on. If we have many parents on our business roundtable and citizens advisory committee, and we certainly have parents on our D teams, on our dyslexia literacy team. We're getting feedback from parents through tools like our webinars. And so by highlighting Dr. Buck's sort of internal engagement, I wasn't meaning to sort of exclude our external groups, but I think we're getting parent feedback through a lot of those existing vehicles as well. Certainly we get parent feedback also on those more focused engagement topics. And there's a presentation from December where I listed every single internal, external, recurring, and one-time feedback group that we have that I'd be happy to send you to, because there's a lot more that I did not put on this slide.
No, I think you answered it, that this is really strictly kind of an internal process. So thank you for clearing that up.
No problem.
Thanks. I'm done now.
Thank you. Thank
Thanks.
you, Board Member Like any other questions, comments? I just want to share a thank you. I love the way you wove this together, because we've talked about since the creation of the CSIB how much we wanted to see it in action, and you did that. And you layered that in with the board priorities, and I just really appreciate all the hard work that went into layering that, but also went into these, the actions that have been completed in both veins. So thank you for that. On the slide 15, I also appreciated, because I know we've had many questions from parents and community members. As a district, what are you people doing to get our kids caught up after COVID? And so thank you for giving us a slide that says, and to your point, there's many more, but by golly, here's some hard black and white things of what we are doing to help our kids get caught up after COVID. So thank you for that, and appreciate you putting that together. Thank you. All right. With that, then, we will move on to Oh, Board Member Sparks?
Sorry, I just had just one question. What is the definition of diverse within these categories?
So with this slide, we're looking at people of color, non-white, educators, and classified staff. Correct. In this, gender is not included, but we got a lot of great data about gender and more detailed that we're going to unpack this summer. You bet. Good question. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Sparks. All right, no other questions or discussion? Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to our items of information, our written reports. That's 10.01, 10.02, 10.03, 10.04. Does anyone have any items that they'd like to, or questions that they'd like to share? Board Member Fritchie?
I'll try to make it snappy because I know we're running long tonight. But I wanted to just comment on 10.01, our early education center and our Parents as Teachers annual program evaluation. Just wanted to say a big thank you out there to Jeannie Cook and the entire early childhood and the Parents as Teachers staff for your report, reflective of your excellent work this past school year. Evidence of this is presented throughout that report. For those of you who take the time to look at that report, it's highlighted in the strengths and celebrations section. And I was going to go through some of these, but in the essence of time, I will not. But there are many great things happening there, including all the PEAK grants you just got about a week ago, which was awesome. Some really cool stuff going to happen there next year. There's always cool stuff happening over at your building. We're very grateful for your group of very talented educators who assist our littlest learners in getting a great start to their education in LSR7. You guys are miracle workers. You really are. You're wonderful. And then on 10.02, the federal programs, annual program evaluation, Dr. Barger created this report, but I always find this report so informative. I don't know about the rest of you, but to me, and it's interesting because it tells us so much about what our school district receives in terms of special funds to help those students who are in the most need of extra assistance. You know, and granted, we all wish that our federal dollars were a whole lot more than what they are, but, you know, many patrons may not really realize that our district does receive $1,777,000 in federal dollars for last year in 21-22. And so, Dr. Barger, thank you very much for spelling all of those things out and making sure that we understand what we're getting for our money. And you know, there are a lot of special people that are affected by all of those dollars. So thank you very much.
And just highlighting around that how those dollars have to be spent, right? Absolutely. Right. Yeah, appreciate that. All right, any other questions, comments? Board Member Murdoch?
Just on the early childhood, as Paradise Park comes online and we end up with 2 facilities, are we going to geographically assign kids to those 2 facilities?
I just asked that question the other day. Sort of. So it's going to depend on transportation and where AM and PM classes are. But in general, there will be, but it won't be a set line. We will flex in the middle of town based on numbers.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Great. If there are no other questions or comments, we'll move on and adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your participation.